So I hope you're not put off by the low code on here. I'm not going to show you any code today, so sorry about that. And actually, I'm going to talk to you today about why you should not use code for integrations. Forward-looking statements. Yes, not everything I'm going to talk about today is generally available, so I have to say this as a Salesforce employee. Please make any purchasing decisions based on generally available products only. Thank you for joining me today. Let's start with a short introduction. As I said, I work for Salesforce as a technical architect. I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for about 10 years. And actually, someone I used to work with at CAP is here, and it's great because it reminded me of how I started as a consultant before I even knew what Salesforce was. So, and now I'm a technical architect, and I volunteer for Supermoms, which is I'm sure you've all heard of it, where I teach admin classes. I also teach Rad Women, which is a developer Apex class only for women. And let's get started. So what I'm talking to you today about is about Crossorg Integration. So this is relevant for you if you work for a company that has more than one production environment, or if you ever work somewhere where they have multiple orgs. Most of the time when there are multiple orgs, they need to have some level of integration. There's many, many ways that you can do multi-org integration, depending on a lot of different factors. What we see typically with customers that only have two is they will have a point-to-point integration, which is what we are going to talk about today. If you have more than two orgs, I would normally not recommend having a point-to-point integration. Just putting that out there. So if we look at point-to-point integration, still there's a lot of different ways we can do that. I guess that most of you are developers, so what you're familiar with is probably writing a piece of Apex that does an API call. So whenever a lead gets created, we have a trigger that makes an HTTP post out to my second org and recreates that lead in the other org, which is a great way of doing it, but it requires code that needs to be maintained. We have some low-code tools. We have MuleSoft Composer, which is our in-platform low-code MuleSoft integration tool that has a lot of out-of-the-box connectors, so you can easily create integrations. It's mainly for point-to-point integrations, but it's very easy to use. Obviously, it's licensed, so there is a cost associated to that. You can use a third-party integration tool if you already have something like MuleSoft within the company, then obviously that would be a very good way of doing it. You can use external services, which is what we're going to talk about today. Or you can use Salesforce Connect. Salesforce Connect, again, is a very good low-code tool. There's one drawback, because if you're talking about the lead example, you will bring leads in as external leads, which means they won't sit in the same object. So you can view all the leads, but you will have leads and external leads. So external services is great because now with this new beta that I'm going to talk to you about, you can very easily generate that Swagger file or OpenApi specification and create the external services. So it's very easy to set up. I'm going to show you a quick demo. So let's go. Right, external services, first of all, have been around for quite a long time. They used to just need a Swagger file, which is now called an OpenApi specification. And then what they do is Salesforce ingests the file and generates the Apex for you that you can then call in a flow, for example. So it creates a piece of invocable Apex that you can call from a flow. Now we've expanded the functionality, so you can upload an OpenApi specification, but you can also directly hook it up to MuleSoft. If you have MuleSoft, you just log into your MuleSoft Anypoint platform account, and it can just bring in any of your APIs that you've exposed there. So it's very easy to use if you have MuleSoft. So that gives you access to all your APIs without having to write a single line of code. So these are the steps that we need to take and what I'm going to show you today. I have cheated a little bit because I've already done step 2. I've already created the name credentials because that usually takes the longest to set up, especially if I don't know if you're familiar with name credentials, but we've just changed the way it works. So it's not just a name credential now, it's a name credential and an external credential, and you need to create a permission set. So there's quite a lot of different steps now. So I've already done that, and I've already done the connected app. So I'm just going to do all the other steps today to make it a little bit quicker. So first of all, you need to generate your OAS3 spec. This QR code takes you to the developer website, which I'm going to show you now, which is this beta website. And it tells you how to generate an OpenAPI specification from your org. So this is going to be your, if we're talking about a hub and a spoke org, this is your spoke org. This is the org that you're going to send your leads to. So the scenario is when a lead gets created in org A, I want to send that same lead to org B. So org B is going to have this OpenAPI spec generated. And if you run through this page, it's very simple. All you need to do is make an API call to to this endpoint. You need to send it a body, which I'm going to show you now, and it will give you back that OpenAPI specification. So for those of you not familiar, this is Postman. It's just a tool to make API calls. And we actually have a Postman collection that you can copy and use to just play around with all the Salesforce APIs. But literally what you need to do is first you need to make a post call to the OAS3 endpoint. And in the body, you have to tell it what you want to do. So in this case, I want to create leads, but maybe later I want to create contacts as well. So I'm going to do leads and contacts for now. And when you make that call, do I still have Wi-Fi is the question. It was working a minute ago. Okay. When you make that call, it should give you back a URL. And hopefully it will still be there. So let's pretend that that was successful. And I got back, this is what I got back. So it's the same URL basically, the OAS3 one, but it has a ID at the end, which you need to copy. And then you change the post into a get, because this is where you're going to get your OpenAPI spec. So that works, okay, fine. So then it gives you back the spec here in your get call. So that you copy that. And this is what you're going to give to your external services to generate the invocable Apex. So, okay, that was step 1 done. Step 2, as I said, I've already done it, but I promised my colleague that I would showcase his blog post on Medium, where he describes exactly how to create the new type of name credentials using a JWT token. So if you're interested in how to do that, step-by-step instructions, very easy to follow. Plus, so names credential, external credential, connected app, everything is in there. Have a look on this page, because the first time I did it, it took me a little while to figure out what you need to do and in what order, because there's quite a few different steps to get this working. And this is just for the authentication, right? So I'll give you, hope everyone can scan that QR code, and then I'll continue my demo. So as you can already see, I've got 2 orgs open there at the top. I've got this developer org, the little blue cloud one, which is the org I'm going to send the leads to. And then I've got the green one, which is the hub org that I'm going to send the leads from. So now I need to go into my green org and create the external services based on the OpenAPI spec that I just copied from Postman. So I'm going to external services. And I'm going to create a new one from an API specification. Leads integration. And I've got a complete JSON. And I already created a name credential, as I said. Oh, that's just the URL. Hold on. Need to create this. Okay, so just copy and paste it into the JSON box. And it should generate. So here it tells you which invocable apex it's going to generate. So I'm getting a get contact, a post contact, a get lead, and a post lead. Okay, and I can call all of those from my. So those are all invocable apex. So any of these I can call from my flow. Okay, that's done. So then, of course, the next thing is to create the flow. So we go to flow. I hope you're all familiar with flow, because this might be a bit new to you if you're only doing Apex. In fact, I think typically what I see is that flow is replacing more and more Apex, right? So this is the future. I mean, typically what I see is that Apex is mainly used for integrations nowadays. Obviously, I mean, there's two main use cases. There's integrations or there's Lightning Web Components. I'm going to come back to this for a little bit later, but... Sorry, did I forget one use case? Oh. But I think... Every
application on the App Exchange?
Okay, yes. I'm talking about core, what I see in core functionality. But in my opinion, for integrations, there is becoming less and less need for writing Apex. So obviously, we want a record-triggered flow, which is going to be our lead flow. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay. So it's going to be on lead when a lead is created. And we need to do this asynchronously. As you will know, if you do it in Apex, you also need to do it asynchronously, because otherwise you get the mixed DML error, right? So we want to do it asynchronously, which we now can with the flow. Yay. So the first thing we need to do is create our variable, which is based on the Apex class. So we need to create a variable, lead, which is going to define the body that we're going to send. So it's Apex defined, and then it should be something like external service lead as object, that one. And that's because we're going to send it a body, and this body needs to have the right formatting, right? We need to generate this JSON where we have the right fields populated with our fields from the lead in the org, which is what we're going to do next. So now we're going to do an assignment. Lead body. And this is where we're going to populate our lead body based on the variable that we just defined. So what do we need to populate? What is the mandatory fields? I think it's last name and company, is it? Last name equals... no, we wanna base it on an actual lead, of course. So we do lead first name, last name. Sorry, last name. So that's the lead that's going to trigger our flow, and then let's do first name as well. First name. That's based on our lead that triggers the flow, and then we just do company, and that's probably enough. Okay. Okay, so that's probably enough for this example. So now we've populated the body that we're going to send. So the next thing is to call our invocable Apex. Lead post. Yeah. So we want to post it. So this is the one we need. And when we select it, it's going to tell us that we need to put in a content type. And I never know what it expects here, but I think what it wants here is we're going to send it JSON, so that's what we need. So that's just a content type. Send lead. And then, of course, we need to include the body, which is going to be our Apex defined variable. Okay, that's it. Save. Send. Sorry, I need to hold the microphone with one hand so I can't type very quickly. Okay, so that should be it. Let's activate that. And let's try it out. So we were here. Of course, I should run some debugs and test flows first, but I'll just try it out straight away. Right, so Salesforce. Okay, so what we expect to happen now is that when we save this, that it's going to send that lead to my other org, which is here. So let's refresh this. And there we are. So that's an integration built in 5 minutes. It will probably take you a bit longer if you do it in Apex. So yes, what I've just showed you is create the external service and then create the flow. So those are the 2 steps. And then finally, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about some more things coming in terms of low-code integration that might be relevant. So you might have already seen that in Flow Builder, you now have an option to do an HTTP call out. I don't know if you just saw when I just did the demo. When you go to actions, it comes up with HTTP call out. So that is currently in beta. I have to say it's a little bit limited in functionality right now. You can only do a get. There's no post yet. And you need to give it like a sample JSON payload, and there's some restrictions on it. So, but I'm sure they're going to build that out more. And this is just the beginning. Then we have flow orchestration, which is the orchestration of different flows and user interaction steps. And that is going to have native Slack and MuleSoft actions as part of that, which is going to come out in Winter 24, so a little bit longer. But when that is out, you'll be able to call any API from MuleSoft or directly in Slack, straight from flow orchestration. What I've just shown you is the OpenApi 3 spec generation, which is currently still in beta. And then the final one is MuleSoft Composer, which is our low-code integration tool. We're going to have some new connectors. There's new connectors coming out all the time, but the new ones that are coming up is Google BigQuery, Sage, Intax, and SAP for HANA are coming out very soon. That's it. Any questions? Yeah.
The demo that you did was just with one lead, right? So what happens if you import 200?
Yeah, it's built in Flow, so that's automatically bulkified, right? So that should work, yeah. Yeah?
Is there a cost for external services?
No.
No cost?
No, there's no cost for external services.
What are the other limits? I did import a spec recently. It capped out at 600 methods or something like that.
There is a limit, the number of characters that you can copy and paste into the JSON. Yeah, because the first time I tried it, I did all S objects. Didn't like that. So yeah. Yeah.
Yes, object OAS. It's going to generate that you.
Sorry?
You know the S object REST API.
API, the OpenSpec generator that you showed, does it also use open validation? So if I were to send it to a non-Salesforce team, would it take validational rules on the S object and generate open validation specs for it, or is it just the
No, as far as I know, it's only the schema for the OpenApi, for the S object get and post. Yeah.
How does the error handling works? Like for example, if there are 200 records which I inserted and then out of which only 100 pass, so where does it actually?
Yeah, good question. There is error handling built in. So what I didn't show you in that action step, so that was just a send. You can choose to retrieve back the code, and then you can create an error branch in your flow that says, okay, if it's an error code 404, for example, then I want to go into this branch, and then you can, yeah, of course you should. I should have built in error handling, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, presumably you can do this the other way as well, so you have two-way syncing.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you can. Yeah, and the good thing is that this is all free still. It's like MuleSoft Composer you have to pay for. Flow orchestration, there's a freemium version, but ultimately you will probably pay for. And this is, you can do this. You can create an integration without writing any code, without paying for additional licenses. Yeah.
How do we talk to multiple logs?
How do you what?
How do we talk to multiple logs, more than one log?
Yeah, so that's why I said this is really for a simple point-to-point integration. If there's more than 2 orgs at play and you're doing some kind of master data management, then I would not recommend using this. I would recommend having like a central repository, having like a central data lake or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
What S objects does it support?
All S objects, yeah, because so you can give it any S object name. So anything that's supported by the normal S object REST API, you can generate an OpenAPI spec for.
When you generate the Apex class for the integration, does it generate test classes?
I'm not sure. I think it would, because otherwise how would you deploy it to production? But the Apex classes, you can't, they're hidden. You can't change them manually. So if you want to make changes to it, you would have to recreate your external service and change your JSON spec manually before you generate the Apex classes. You can't edit the Apex classes.
Can you deploy it in this case?
Yeah, you can deploy it, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like a managed package, basically.
So the external service you can deploy, yeah?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. It's available through the metadata API, so you can deploy it.
Okay.
Do the standard REST API limits still apply?
Yes. You can buy more. Any other questions? Yeah.
Would migrating lining email templates between orgs be a suitable use case for it? Do you think that would just be reserved for something like that?
I am not sure how. Lining email templates are, I assume, are considered metadata, not data.
No, I think classical metadata and lightning are.
Oh, okay.
I think Lightning is data.
Is data.
Well, you can transfer it with.
Okay, if it's accessible through the REST API as an S object, then you should be able to do it. But obviously, it's going to be text. I don't think it quite supports rich media blob type data.
So that means that it won't work for attachments, for files.
No, I don't. I haven't tried it, but I don't think it will work for files. No.
You can upload files to the REST API. I would try.
Try it.
Try because it is possible to upload files to the service.
Could you use it for external services other than Salesforce?
Oh yes. So anything that can create an OpenAPI specification, you can generate an external service from. Yes, definitely. You can use it for, I just use Salesforce because it's easy, but yeah, you can use it for anything.
I think, any more questions? I think we're